d4, knight f6, c4, b6, knight f3, bishop b7, g3, g6, knight c3, d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop g2, bishop g7, castle kingside, castle kingside, queen c2, knight takes c3, b takes c3, knight d7, e4, e6, bishop g5, bishop f6, bishop e3, c5, rook a d1, c takes d4, c takes d4, rook c8, queen b1, queen c7, rook d2, bishop g7, d5, e takes d5, e takes d5, bishop c3, rook c1, queen d6, rook d1, knight e5, knight d4, bishop takes d4, bishop takes d4, knight d7, queen b2, rook takes c1, queen takes c1, rook e8, queen h6, f6, queen d2, king f7, h4, knight c5, queen h6, king g8, h5, queen f8, queen c1, g5, h6, queen d6, queen c3, knight d7, queen d2, rook e7, bishop b2, knight e5, queen c3, rook c7, queen e3, g4, bishop takes e5, f takes e5, queen g5, check, king f8, rook e1, rook e7, queen takes g4, rook f7, queen e4, queen takes h6, queen takes e5, queen f6, queen b8, check, king g7, f4, bishop takes d5, rook e5, bishop takes g2, rook g5, check, king h6, king takes g2, rook g7, rook d5, rook g6, Queen e8, Queen g7, Queen e3, Queen f6, f5 check, Queen g5, Queen takes g5 check, Rook takes g5, King f3, Rook g8, King f4, Rook c8, Rook d6 check, King g7, g4, Rook c4 check, King g5, Rook c7, a4, Rook e7, King h5, a6, a5, b takes a5, Rook takes a6, Rook b1, King g5, Rook b5, Rook a7 check, King g8, King f6, Rook b6 check, King e7, King g7, g5, Rook b8, Rook takes a5, Rook b7 check, King e6, Rook b6 check, King e5, Rook b7, Rook a4, Rook e7 check, King f4, Rook e1, Rook a7 check, King g8, Rook b7, Rook e2, Rook b4, Rook e1, Rook e4, Rook g1, King e5, King f7, King f4, Rook f1 check, King g4, Rook g1 check, King h5, Rook f1, Rook e5, Rook h1 check, King g4, Rook g1 check, King f4, Rook f1 check, King e4, Rook g1, f6, King g6, King d5, h6, G takes h6, King takes f6, Rook h5, Rook g8, h7, Rook h8, King e4, King g6, Rook h3, Rook takes h7, Rook takes h7, King takes h7,